What up, Virginia Jets fans? This is your president, Adam Bartolo, broadcasting from the studio apartment in Newport News, Virginia. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the draft, which is 1 week from today, as of this recording, the first round. And today I'm not going to talk too much about specific draft prospects. What I want to talk about is the different picks the Jets have, what their positions of needs are, but also how this draft is looking in terms of what positions you can really get a good player at, talk about the other positions where things may not be as deep. So, and then in future videos, what I'm planning to do is to break down certain players, just to mention a few names that the Jets and Joe Douglas may be looking to target with some of those picks. Not just in the first round, because we're all focused on the quarterback, but the Jets have a lot of picks in this draft, so want to be ready for what they might do later on. So what I'm doing is going by Pro Football Focus. What they've done is ranked the 11 different positions on offense and defense from what they feel is the weakest to the strongest. Now, I'm going to talk about what I feel are the Jets' biggest areas of need, and we'll see how all of this might come together. So, first of all, the Jets have 10 picks this draft as of now. They've got 2 first-round picks on day 1, number 2 and number 23. Then on day 2, you've got a second-round pick at 34, and then 2 third-round picks, 66 and 86. Then on the final day of the draft, we have a fourth-rounder, number 107. We have 2 fifth-round picks, 146 and 154, so those are pretty close together. Then we have 2 sixth-round picks, 186 and 226. That 226 is the Sam Darnold trade pick that we got back. Now, in terms of what I feel the Jets' biggest positions of need are, after free agency has come to pass, I'm looking at the 11 different positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive tackle, interior offensive line. I'm going to separate the 2 offensive line. Also on the defensive line, you have your defensive tackles and your defensive ends. Because now, with Robert Saleh as our head coach, we're transitioning from a 4-3 defense. So now we've got 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers as our base, as opposed to 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers. First time that's happened since, I believe, Herman Edwards was coaching many years ago. So I want to differentiate the defensive line players. Then, of course, linebacker, cornerback, safety. And yes, we need a kicker. I will actually talk about kicker in the future. But those are 11 positions. Now, here's what I'm seeing the biggest areas of need are. We're okay. If there's one position where the Jets are good, it's interior defensive line. Between Quinn Williams, Foley Fatukasi, Sheldon Rankins, who they just signed in free agency. Nathan Shepard has shown a few glimpses. They're pretty set there. Safety is pretty good. The question is, will they sign Marcus May to a long-term contract? So, to me, that's a position you could address, but you don't really have to address, but you could. Offensive tackle is probably the next one up. We just drafted Mekhi Becton, number 1 overall. George Fant at right tackle, you could stay with him for another year or 2 if you needed to. But if there's a chance to upgrade, great, but it's not a position I would call absolutely must, upgrade right now. Wide receiver, let's think about this: Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder, Keelan Cole, not even factoring some of the other depth guys, like a Braxton Berrios or somebody like that. They're okay wide receiver for this year. If you could get somebody in the middle rounds, then that's something I would consider. Running back, I don't think the Jets are in a position to really spend premium draft picks on running back. So, let's see. We got Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, Josh Adams, LaMichael Pirine. If you have a good enough offensive line, you can kind of survive at running back. I think they will take a running back, but I wouldn't spend premium draft capital on it. An edge rusher, we signed Carl Lawson, which I thought was a fantastic free agency signing. If they want to get an edge player at some point to go across from him, they could do that. But I would say, and then also tight end. Chris Herndon, maybe a bounce back candidate. I know it's Adam Gase, probably really messed with him, but It seems like the Jets have just been signing a bunch of depth tight ends. Keeping Daniel Brown, signing Tyler Kroft from Buffalo. They still have Ryan Griffin. I don't know why. I feel like he should have been cut a while ago and saved $2 million off the cap. But he's still around there and kicking. So I'm wondering if they're gonna look at tight end in this particular draft. Now, there's three positions that I think are of dire need. The third from the top is linebacker. With three linebackers now, instead of playing we're playing three on the field instead of four. C.J. Mosley, what's he going to be like after 2 years away? They signed Jared Davis from Detroit, rotational player. Blake Cashman's a good player, but let's be honest, he's injured. He played 7 snaps last year. They need to get some speedy linebackers. So, honestly, I would not be upset if Joe Douglas drafts 2 linebackers by the time it's all said and done. I really mean that. Cornerback, we need a plug-and-play cornerback. We need a starting cornerback. Now, maybe they could still sign Richard Sherman. That is possible. But across from Bryce, I like Bryce Hall as one starter, but I would really like a cornerback who can really plug in and play immediately. I don't have a lot of confidence in Bless Austin. Also, remember, they haven't brought back Brian Poole as their slot cornerback, and I got a feeling they may not at this point. Unless they're really confident in Javelin Guidry as their slot cornerback, they may need to draft 2 cornerbacks. So keep that in mind. Biggest need on this team to me is interior offensive line. We all know what happened to Sam last year. He got brutalized for much of the season, but our running game had very little space to run. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, we all know what a mess that was. A lot of it was because this offensive line couldn't block, especially on the interior. So I want to see them hit guard, but possibly center, but definitely guard. So that's how I'm looking at the biggest areas of need for this team. Now let's go to what Pro Football Focus is saying are the rankings from 11 to 1 in terms of positions of strength for this draft. Now, the worst position they're saying is interior defensive line. Works for me, because that's probably the one position the Jets may not really have to address during this draft. Number 10 is safety. This is a very boomer bust situation. I do have 1 or 2 guys who I really like, but I can't imagine the Jets getting a safety at a position higher than maybe say those 5th round picks, the 146 and 154. I don't see that happening. Running back is number 9. Now, they have a few elite running backs, maybe 5 or 6 elite running backs. Travis Etienne from Clemson, Najee Harris from Alabama. Javonte Williams from North Carolina is rising up in the rankings. I also like Michael Carter a lot from North Carolina, by the way. If he can slip to the 3rd round, I would strongly consider him. At number 8, they have edge defender. So, again, that's a spot that the Jets have sort of shored up a little bit. Again, Carl Lawson, maybe a John Franklin Myers. Jabari Zuniga, they drafted last year. We don't really know what he is. He is a good athlete, but again, he was hurt last year. So we don't really know what to expect from there. So, again, if they want to pick a player later on in the draft, they could certainly do that. Number 7 is tight end. So Kyle Pitts is basically being ballyhooed as the greatest prospect since sliced bread. I think he actually is pretty fantastic, but unfortunately the Jets are not in a position to draft him. If they had kept Sam Darnold, I would have been all for drafting Kyle Pitts because he will be a weapon in this league, I believe. So tight end I think you could address in the 3rd round. I think I'd like to see them go tight end in maybe the 3rd round. Maybe linebacker, and we'll go with tight end, or maybe around the 3rd round, maybe the 4th. But I think there's not a lot of depth to the tight end position this year, so maybe mid-round picks. Now, linebacker is number 6. So here, I'm not expecting them to do it immediately. There are a few premium linebackers, maybe about 3 or so that are expected to go in the 1st round. I don't know if they're in a position to do that unless the board falls a certain way, but I would say starting with, again, that 3rd round, I think linebacker and tight end are 2 positions to hit maybe around that 3rd round. Cornerback is number 5. So I would say the top 4 are where the best players are. I think Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn will probably be gone by number 23. But I think a Greg Newsome from Northwestern could drop. Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech could drop. So there is also quite a bit of strength on day 2 as well, with picks 3 and 4. So I really think the meat and potatoes of this draft is around round 3. If you could get like another third round pick at some point, like if Joe Douglas wanted to trade down from say 34 and acquire an extra third round pick, I would definitely be in favor of it. Of course, it depends on how far down in the draft you're going, but I think I like the idea of getting an extra third round pick to shore up those positions: cornerback, linebacker, tight end. That's what I'm hoping for. Now, 4 positions left. Number 4 is interior offensive line. This is a position that needs to be addressed quickly. I have a hope, and that is that Elijah Vera Tucker will drop to 23. I don't believe that he will, but that is a plug-and-play guard. One thing with this offense, with the Mike Shanahan, Mike LaFleur offense, they want their offensive line to be mobile and agile. We don't want statues standing right in the middle of the line that can't move, because with a zone blocking scheme, you've got to move and shift your weight and get into a certain position. You know, you're not just staying in front of one guy and blocking him. So the offensive line we want to look for are agile, mobile offensive linemen. So let's keep that in mind. Number 3, wide receiver. A lot of wide receivers are going to go early. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Jets are in no position to draft those guys. I think they could probably sneak one in maybe the 5th round. I think they've got some good depth there. Jamison Crowder might leave after this season. That's when his contract is up, so you might want to look at maybe a slot corner. The one thing the Jets don't necessarily have, though, is a deep threat at wide receiver. So I think if they could have one wide receiver, just like a raw guy who can go over the top and stretch the defense, and you can, just that freak boomer bust type of guy, you could try to do that a little bit later in the draft, maybe around like round 5 or something like that, maybe even around 6. That could possibly work. All right, 2 positions left. Number 2, offensive tackle. Again, if they want to get maybe a developmental prospect here, then they can definitely do that. But right now, I don't consider that a pressing area of need. And the number 1 position, believe it or not, overall in this draft is quarterback. We all know what the Jets are going to do with their number 2 pick. They're definitely drafting the quarterback. I think we all know who we think it's going to be. But we'll have to find out for sure Thursday night. And if you want to find out Thursday night, well, the gang will be down at AJ Gators. The draft starts at 8 o'clock. Try to get there, let's say, by 7:30 or so. We're going to be doing a raffle, and a part of that is, again, who will the Jets draft with their 2nd first-round pick. So we'll have a few raffle prizes, and all you need to do, you're just going to pick the name out of the hat. This is what we're planning on doing. Pick the name out of the hat, and if that's who the Jets draft with that pick, then you win the raffle. Pretty straightforward, right? So that's all I'm going to do for today. I know this is a lot longer than a game preview, but there's a lot of stuff to address. And I think what I'll do in the future videos, I think I'll do one video on maybe, not sure if I'm going to do one on offensive players, one on defensive players, or maybe I'll do a separate video for day 1 prospects, day 2 prospects, day 3 prospects. But I think we'll do it one of those 2 ways. Well, we'll see how we do it. All right, thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through to the end, way to go. And we'll keep watching the channel for more updates. New content will be coming, and we'll see you Thursday night. Go Jets.